Charismatic spiritual leaders are can be very effective communicators and unbelievably dangerous to other people. I like that I'm in a system that has oversight. You know, we have to do
containment.
Absolutely, we have to do a psych evaluation. You know what I mean? It's not just free range.
But there's got to be some things about the Lutheran Church that bug you. I mean, there's some things about the Baha'i faith that bug me. And I think that's okay, isn't it? And I think a lot of people feel like I could never be a part of an organized religion because I love 97% of it, but there's 3% of it I don't love.
Right.
So I could never be but don't we do that all the time?
You're married to
I love
someone
97% of my wife, Holiday Reinhorn. And there's 3% that
what are you going to do? Like keep your purity and your ideals.
And like, what about our job? What percentage of your job do you love? Are you going to quit your job because you only love, 83% of what you do?
Right.
Like, so there's kind of a disconnect there. That religion needs to be 100%. I'm on board, but everything else in life is a lesser percentage.
I don't relate to the Lutheran Church culturally at all. So I spend more time in the Episcopal Church, very Midwestern, mainstream, predominantly, not exclusively. There are a lot of immigrant Lutheran churches and whatnot.
It's pretty white, right?
It's the whitest denomination in the country. Yeah. So it's just it's an immigrant church historically. So it was brought over by Finnish, Norwegian, Swedish, German, Danish Lutherans. And so it retained a lot of that ethnic identity. I'm not ethnically Lutheran, I just happen to be theologically Lutheran. And so I don't like walk into Lutheran churches and go, oh yeah, I'm really comfortable here. You know? I'm obsessed with compassion and grace and forgiveness, but not because I have such an abundance of them that it overflows and I can offer it to people who need it.
Sure, because you struggle with it.
It's because I'm desperate for it. And I know I need it. And so for whatever reason, all of my preaching and when I was in my parish, they said, we love having a preacher who's clearly preaching to herself and letting us overhear it. And that's kind of all I've ever done is tried to dig in and go, what is it I'm struggling with for real? And how can I write about that or preach about that in a way that I can bring in things that more reliable narrators than myself in order to find hope that's not just like vapid optimism, When
I asked you, what was in your heart to speak about these days, you talked about grace and forgiveness and compassion. I think culturally we talk about forgiveness a lot. We know what forgiveness means. We're not very good at practicing it. And I want to dig into that issue of how to forgive and how forgiveness works. But a word we don't hear much, especially non-Protestants, let's say, is grace. And I love that word, grace. But what's the difference between grace and forgiveness? We'll dig into forgiveness, but what is grace? Does grace teach us about forgiveness? What is it exactly?
I think grace allows us to have a posture in which forgiveness is possible. But to me, grace, the definition I have is grace is like, it's the freight train that delivers into my life all of the most beautiful and unearnable things. Like I got to hold a baby yesterday, and a few months ago I ate a perfect peach, and the sun comes up every day, and like really, all of the most beautiful things in my life are unearnable, and I still get to have them, and because of grace. It's beautiful, right? To me, grace happens when we lower our expectations of ourselves and life and other people, which sounds depressing in our culture, but I think it is kind of the key to contentment and to be free of resentments and things like that, to go, I'm not going to hold people to some standard that's not really a human standard. I think idealism can be really harmful, actually. It sounds good on the surface, like inspiring, but I've never seen it really pan out when human beings were involved, because we disappoint each other. We break our promises. We say harsh things. We do self-centered things and try to pawn them off as something else. We're not honest. Like that's super. Just
I have to push back on that a little bit. The civil rights movement was an idealistic movement. Flawed. Mm-hmm. Have we fixed racism? No fucking way.
Yeah.
But it was born out of an ideology like, hey, we can all come together, black, white,
Sure.
People of faith, people not of faith, and we can enact laws and we can build bridges and we can resist when we need to resist.
So to me, grace is to go, let's look at the good that came from it and not do this thing that's very popular right now and go, yeah, but you understand that women weren't allowed to be in leadership in the way that men were in the civil rights movement. You know that, right? Like there's this instinct that people have to say, yeah, but what about all of these other things? And so to me, grace is to say, yeah, whataboutism? Grace is to go, it's okay to celebrate the good things that have happened. And that's not the same as ignoring the things that weren't perfect. Because if we allow for the things that aren't perfect and we don't expect it to really be anything other than that, it allows us to have an appreciation for what is in a more robust way and to see the good in a more robust way.
The Soul Boom Podcast. Subscribe now on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else you get your stupid podcasts.